Hi. You probably have figured out most of what I'm going to be covering here in talking about lenses just from reading the written material, but I figured it would be a good idea just to hold up a couple lenses and show you the different parts, and just so that we all know what we're talking about. So obviously, this is a lens on a camera. It happens to be a lens that's removable, and because it's a large sensor camera, you may be able to tell that you don't have too much depth of field. And especially, right now I'm pretty wide, but if I zoom in, you can see how, even at this focal length, which is 35 millimeters, there is not a lot of depth of field. I'm shooting wide open. I don't have any lights on, by the way. I just have some light coming from the skylight. So let's start with just a basic lens. Now, this is a prime lens. This is one that came with the camera, with the f3. I'm going to start by removing the front cap. This is a 50 millimeter lens. And then I'm removing the back cap. So you may be able to see through. And you see as that little dot gets smaller and larger, that's what happens when I adjust the iris ring. This is hopefully the autofocus is working properly on the camera, and you can actually see in the close-up that I'm going from f2 all the way down, closing all the way down, and opening back up. Now let's start in the back. You can't see through very well here because there's nothing really bright. Well, there I guess you can see. Okay, so you're seeing the iris close down and open up, and that's how the lens, using the lens, we can control the amount of light coming through, because as you know, for any given setting, the sensor wants kind of a certain amount of light. So this of the rotating rings, this back one is the iris ring, and you can probably see there's a kind of witness mark here. A witness mark is the reference mark indicating where it's set, and next to that, the next ring over on this lens is focus. And you can see that both, it has a scale for feet and a scale for meters. You see I'm being very careful not to touch any of the elements. This front element is not huge. It's an f2 lens, or a T2. And as you probably remember, the difference between T-stops and f-stops is that f-stop gives you the geometric relationship between the size of the element and the focal length, whereas the T-stop gives you the actual amount of light that's coming through. So if there are a lot of elements in the lens, if there's a lot lost in terms of internal reflection, then you essentially have your T-stop will normally be higher than your f-stop. It's impossible for your T-stop to be any lower, but you might, in the case of a zoom lens, you might have a zoom lens that's a f2.8 and it's a t3.5, something like that. So you have these two rings that rotate. This front area does not rotate. It is possible, there's a little screw thread on the inside here, so you're able to put a protection filter on there. Now, of course, on the back of the lens, this is a mount. And with cine lenses in particularly, sometimes you know, the same lens can be mounted on different cameras by changing the mount. This mount happens to be called a PL mount, which was developed by Airflex, and it has these 4 areas and a cutout here that goes to, there's a pin inside the camera that locates it. You also can see there are a few little contacts here. Now, that's because this is an intelligent lens where using these electronics, the camera can actually know what the t-stop is and what the focus distance is. So that's very useful in terms of that's all saved on your data. So if you need to go back and replicate it, you can do that later. Let's see what this looks like going through here. You may see that the image is kind of upside down there when we look through. And here it just looks plain out of focus. I don't think I'd be able to. I can't really get that into focus particularly. But you can tell that the lens is focusing in a different place than the camera, if you can see that at all. Okay, I'm going to put the caps back on this, and we're just going to take a look at a still lens here. This is a Nikon lens. It's an 85 millimeter, and it's 1.4, so it has a very, very large front element, and you can see the iris are doing its job. Now, I'm going to try a little experiment. I'm going to take a piece of paper, and I'm going to attempt to focus. I don't know if you can see it. There's actually a skylight up above me, and you may be able to see that that skylight is actually coming into focus, depending how far away I hold the lens. I know I'm kind of blocking it. It's not perfect, but there are actually 2 skylights. But there's the second one has almost no light coming through it, because from here you're not really seeing the sky. But basically what the lens is doing, you saw me moving it closer and further, is I'm just changing the focus distance, and essentially with this lens, you see as I focus, the elements actually move. Now, a lot of more recent lenses and non-still lenses are internal focus, which means that the elements will move somewhat internally, but the front of the lens does not move forward and back. Now, that's a big advantage if let's say, instead of like a sunshade, which we have here, if you had a matte box system with rods and so on, and the matte box was held a fixed distance, then if you focus at a certain point, this front element is going to start, the ring here is going to hit a filter, if you have a filter in that matte box, and that'll stop the amount of focusing that you can do. One thing about the Nikon lenses is that they have a little pin back here that allows for adjustment of your f-stop, and you may be able to see how I'm opening and closing it with this. Now, there are some adapters that will have for instance, this adapter actually has a mechanical little screw thing that where you can adjust it. Probably see it best in the in the little in the monitor here. And that's this little nub right here that's doing it. So that is, it's a way. Now this lens does have an iris ring that controls the diaphragm, but a lot of more recent lenses do not have that ring, and so if you have a Nikon lens, you have to use this little lever to control your iris if you're using an adapter on a video camera. Now, obviously, or should be pretty obvious, you never want to touch any of the glass elements, and the big reason is that there are oils on your fingers that will negatively affect the coating, and you may actually end up with fingerprints that won't go away. Wanted to show you also a zoom lens, and this is, it's kind of similar in that, you know, it does have, you know, you have your front element here, and you have focus here. Actually, this is a zoom lens on here, so it's doing the same things. You have your focus, and then you have your zoom. Now, you see in the case of this lens, this being a still lens, as it zooms, its form factor changes. So that's, again, you know, it's something where if you're using a matte box, you'll be affected by this. And this one, again, has an iris ring because this is an older lens. And, you know, I happen to like the Nikon glass and so on, and, you know, for a couple $1,000s, this is giving you the quality of a cine lens that would probably cost at least 4 times as much. On the camera now is an adapter for a Nikon lens, but this is an adapter for a PL mount lens, such as this. Now, one thing about still lenses is that you can't really adjust the back focus. Now, this camera actually has a little place here where you can go in with a special tool and adjust slightly the flange focal distance of this. It's something that I would really recommend not doing if you can help it. It's not, basically, it's not a good idea unless you really, you know, you have test patterns, you know what you're doing, and so on. Basically, this is, you know, the kind of concept of lenses. If you have a video zoom for one of the shoulder mount cameras, there's another adjustment all the way on the back of the lens which will allow you to manually adjust the back focus, because video cameras tend not to be, were not quite as precise as film cameras in their design, and so with video zooms you had to be able to adjust the back focus. With a lot of the new video cameras, they're actually set up in such a way that you can't adjust the back focus on the lens, but the back focus is adjusted electronically through a special electronic adjustment, and that's something that tends to be in the service menu on some cameras, on cameras that don't have interchangeable lenses. So just with lenses, be very careful of them. If you, you know, if you need to clean one, there's special lens cleaning fluid. Don't use anything but special lens cleaning fluid if you're using lens cleaning fluid. Otherwise, a little blower, perhaps a brush if the brush is totally clean, or a microfiber cloth. It is okay to kind of breathe on the lens a little bit, but no spit. You know, that's, be very, very, very gentle with lenses.